Rosario Dawson's story doesn't begin in luxury, fame, or privilege. It begins on a broken doorstep in New York City, where dreams often die before they have a chance to breathe. Born in 1979 to a teenage mother, Isabel Celeste, Rosario's earliest memories weren't of comfort or security, but of survival. Her mother was barely 17, and the world wasn't kind to young mothers of color struggling to make ends meet. They lived in abandoned buildings, made homes out of places most people would call unlivable, and found warmth in the belief that love could make up for everything they lacked. When Rosario was still a child, her mother met a man named Greg Dawson, who adopted Rosario as his own. Together, the family created a world out of scraps, one filled with determination, resilience, and fierce independence. While other kids had bedrooms, Rosario had walls patched up with cardboard and blankets. Yet, even in that poverty, she learned something that would later define her entire career: how to see beauty in imperfection. She grew up observing people, listening to their stories, learning how to express emotions through eyes, gestures, and voices. The streets of New York became her first classroom. Humanity was her first teacher. She didn't have acting lessons or connections. She had heart, courage, and an uncheckable sense of who she was. Her big break came as unexpectedly as a miracle. One afternoon, while she was just sitting on her front steps, a filmmaker named Larry Clark walked by. He was working on a new project called Kids, a raw, controversial film about youth culture in the 1990s. Rosario wasn't dressed for an audition, nor was she trying to be discovered. She was simply being herself, confident, curious, unfiltered. Something about her energy caught Clark's eye, and before she knew it, she was cast in a role that would change her life forever. At just 15, Rosario Dawson went from being a girl on a cracked New York stoop to being in one of the most talked about independent films of the decade. Kids wasn't glamorous. It was gritty, real, and shocking, and so was Rosario's performance. She didn't act like someone trying to impress. She became the role, natural and powerful. Critics took notice of her authenticity. Audiences saw something different: a young Latina who didn't conform to Hollywood's mold, who spoke her truth with fierce conviction. But even with the fame that followed, Rosario didn't lose herself. She knew Hollywood had a way of shaping people into what it wanted them to be, but she had already spent her whole life fighting to be seen for who she really was. Instead of chasing fame, she chased purpose. Instead of trying to fit in, she chose to stand out. She refused to be typecast as a stereotype or token. She demanded roles that had depth, intelligence, and dignity. In the years that followed, Rosario worked tirelessly, not just to prove herself as an actress, but to build a career on her own terms. She appeared in diverse projects that showed her incredible range, from He Got Game and Josie and the Pussycats to Men in Black to And 25th Hour. Each role was a step forward, a statement that she belonged not because of her looks, but because of her talent. She balanced blockbusters with indie films, glamour with grit, and proved that authenticity could be her greatest strength. But fame didn't make her forget her roots. Even as her star rose, Rosario stayed grounded in her community. She spoke about poverty, representation, and the need for equality long before it became a social media trend. She co-founded Voto Latino, an organization aimed at empowering young Latinos to become politically active and use their voices. For Rosario, success was never just about walking red carpets. It was about creating change, giving back, and lifting others who still lived in the same kind of struggle she had once escaped. Her life wasn't without pain or sacrifice. There were moments of doubt, moments where Hollywood turned its back, moments where she had to rebuild her confidence brick by brick. But Rosario had learned resilience from her mother, a woman who had faced the world with nothing but willpower and made it through. Every rejection became fuel, every failure became a lesson, and slowly, she transformed herself from a teenage discovery into one of the most respected and multifaceted women in the industry. As the years passed, Rosario took control not just of her career, but of her destiny. She began producing, directing, and using her influence to tell stories that mattered. She wasn't content to simply act, she wanted to create. Her voice became a force of empowerment, her platform a beacon for those who felt unseen. In an industry that too often silenced women of color, Rosario became a loud, fearless voice for representation, diversity, and justice. Her journey from a neglected neighborhood to Hollywood stardom wasn't just a success story, it was proof that greatness doesn't come from where you start, but from how far you're willing to go. Rosario Dawson became a symbol of hope for every dreamer who's ever felt overlooked, for every young person who's ever thought they weren't enough, and for every woman who's ever been told to stay in her place. And the best part, Rosario never stopped evolving. From actress to activist, from storyteller to leader, she kept pushing boundaries, reminding the world that true beauty isn't in perfection, it's in purpose. After Kids shook the independent film world, Rosario Dawson's name became a spark that Hollywood couldn't ignore. Casting directors saw potential in her, the rawness, the realness, and the kind of authenticity that couldn't be taught in acting schools. But Rosario knew something that others didn't. She wasn't interested in being famous for the sake of fame. She wanted to make art that mattered, roles that had something to say. Her next big leap came when she starred in Spike Lee's He Got Game alongside Denzel Washington. Working with one of cinema's greatest directors at such a young age was no small feat. Rosario studied everything, the way Denzel prepared for scenes, the precision in Spike's direction, the rhythm of professional storytelling. She absorbed it all like a sponge, understanding that acting wasn't about pretending, it was about truth. Each line had weight, each gesture emotion, and Rosario began to channel all her life experience into her craft. As she continued to climb, Hollywood began offering her more diverse roles. She appeared in Josie and the Pussycats and Men in Black 2, balancing comedy, action, and drama. But she wasn't satisfied. She wanted depth, characters that reflected the complexity of real women, especially women of color. That's when she found herself in the gritty drama 25th Hour by Spike Lee again, where she delivered one of her most nuanced performances. Critics praised her presence, strong yet vulnerable, magnetic yet grounded. Rosario was no longer the girl discovered on a stoop. She was a force shaping her own destiny. Then came Sin City, a film that would mark a turning point in her career. Stylized, daring, and visually groundbreaking, the movie showcased Rosario in a bold new light. As Gail, the fearless leader of the Old Town Women, she exuded confidence, power, and command. She wasn't a damsel in distress, she was the storm itself. The film made her a global sensation and proved that she could lead a blockbuster while staying true to her edge. Yet fame, as always, came with a price. Hollywood loved Rosario's energy but still tried to box her in. Casting agents would typecast her as the tough Latina or the exotic beauty, roles that stripped away her range. But Rosario fought back. She used every no as fuel to create her own yes. She began collaborating with visionary directors who valued authenticity over stereotypes. And that decision led her to Rent, a film that would challenge her emotionally and spiritually. Playing Mimi Marquez, a struggling dancer battling addiction, Rosario delivered one of her most haunting performances. She poured every piece of her past, the pain of poverty, the resilience of her mother, the loneliness of trying to find one's place in the world, into the character. When she sang out tonight, it wasn't just a performance. It was liberation. The critics felt it, the fans felt it, and so did Rosario. That film wasn't just a career milestone, it was personal healing. But behind the curtain, Rosario still faced the quiet war that every artist does, self-doubt. Despite her success, she often questioned whether she truly belonged in an industry that didn't see many like her rise this far. She faced whispers about her identity, her heritage, her looks, as though being unique was a flaw instead of her greatest gift. But instead of letting those doubts consume her, she turned them into power. She became vocal about representation, diversity, and the responsibility of storytelling. Her activism wasn't performative, it was personal. She co-founded Voto Latino, an organization to empower young Latinos to vote and shape their own political future. She stood at rallies, spoke at universities, and became a voice for equality, education, and justice. She wasn't content being a star on screen, she wanted to be a light off screen. Rosario once said, "I know what it's like to be invisible. That's why I fight so hard to make others seen." Her compassion went beyond speeches. She used her platform to advocate for women's rights, climate justice, and humanitarian causes. She traveled, volunteered, and spoke up for those who had no microphone. She didn't wait for opportunities, she built them. By the late 2000s, Rosario had become one of the most respected actresses in Hollywood, known for her fearlessness and integrity. She continued to surprise audiences with roles in Clerks 2, 7 Pounds, and Unstoppable, where she matched the intensity of legends like Will Smith and Denzel Washington. Each film showed a different side of her, the survivor, the fighter, the thinker, the dreamer, but perhaps her most defining quality wasn't her versatility, it was her humanity. Rosario Dawson never let success isolate her from her origins. She often returned to her old neighborhood, mentoring young artists, funding community programs, and reminding kids that greatness doesn't require perfect beginnings. It requires heart, courage, and purpose. When she became part of the Marvel Universe as Claire Temple in Daredevil, Luke Cage, and Jessica Jones, she reached a new generation of fans. She wasn't just an actress playing a role, she was representation itself, a symbol that strength could be compassionate, that heroes could look like anyone. Fans around the world adored her for her authenticity and warmth. She brought humanity to a genre dominated by spectacle. Through it all, Rosario remained humble. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing meaning. She kept reminding herself why she started, that girl sitting on a stoop, dreaming beyond her circumstances. Every step she took in Hollywood was still, in her heart, for that girl, and for everyone like her.